Hello, hello. You should all be now heard. I'm turning down the volume and also the music's volume because that's going to get distracting. Oh, right. Hello.
Okay, we can see your whole display.
Excellent. Well, I wasn't going to do the woo. And okay. Yeah, get rid of that. Cool. Bam. Move you over there. Right. Actually, I did want to see the chat. But hello. It is the coffee catch-up. Yeah. So okay, story time. I forgot that I reset my computer between now and the last stream. So I didn't have any of my OBS configurations, like none of them, and I didn't even have OBS installed. So I had to try and panic to get that all installed and everything. So yeah, that happened. How's everyone else's day going?
Well, I woke up, had to immediately. I woke up way earlier than usual. I woke up at like 9. I woke up at 8:30. Had to panic, get ready to go do like the onboarding stuff at my new school, and now I'm here without properly eating breakfast, but that's fine.
That's fine. To be fair, if you've tuned in for the original stream, you could hear me say that I'm eating a burger. So I'd only just eat it. What about you, Kai?
I mean, it's the evening for me now. Had a fun day. Didn't really do much yet. Worked a little bit, I guess, but yeah, pretty chill day for me today.
Awesome. Yeah, is Kai's audio not working, or are they just not talking?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you go. I can hear you now.
Wait, so you didn't hear me just now?
I didn't. Okay, my Discord likes to freak out and just not.
For Bailey.
I can hear you now.
Yeah,
I can hear you now. My Discord doesn't like me.
Okay, well, if you're that interested, you can listen to the VOD.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not interesting anyways. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, for anyone who hasn't tuned into these streams in the past, these are very impromptu streams. They are not to the usual quality standard with the amount of planning as our API review streams or our community meetings. Basically, it's just an opportunity to sit down and have a chat between the Silk team, the community, whether that be Silk related or not Silk related. Generally, we do try to keep it at least a little bit on topic for graphics and programming. But other than that, yeah, it's a good opportunity to catch up. But seeing as the only people in the school are Silk people, what's everyone been doing Silk-wise?
I guess I'll start. So since 2.17 came out, there's been a few release day bugs with OpenGL, WebGPU, which have been resolved on the master branch. And since then, we have there's been a PR coming in for more tutorials. I opened a PR to add bindings for the various SpearV related libraries and tools. And we're also working on redoing our native library building to be a bit more robust and more platforms, hopefully. And the Linux libraries should work on more distributions. Hopefully that's in by 2.18, which no idea when that's going to come out. That's mostly what I've been working on.
Well, yeah, today is what usually would be Update Friday, but we stopped the monthly updates. Upon my resignation to try and not overload the few remaining maintainers. So I guess whenever. It's not really no rush. It doesn't even have to be on a Friday. You just do it whenever.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly I've been really impressed with the 2x progress. I sort of didn't think that we could even do this much anymore, but yeah, it's been really impressive. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought 2.0 was done by the time that I signed off, but then Bailey's just coming like, oh yeah, let's add a million things.
Yeah.
I need for my own personal uses, and so I do.
Nah, I respect it.
I mean, there's no.
Yeah, I'm glad that someone else has taken up the mantle there, because well, certainly with the bindings generator as well, right? It is good to have someone else that has some idea of what's going on.
Just a little. Sometimes I'll look at the code that I've even worked on before, and I'll just look at the build tools code and I'll be like, what am I looking at? And then I spend the next 3 hours rediscovering what that code does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I repeatedly say, build tools predate Silk.net itself, so it's been passed around a lot of people. I think there are still some bits of code that was written by Jax that is still floating around in there somewhere, and he's never worked on Silk.net. So, other than the OpenAI binding, they were just
it's just a little a little hard to work with sometimes.
Well, that's why we really need 3.0, and that serves as a nice segue over to Kai.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much going on. I think there's one community member that has like looked at it, which I have found to be really interesting. I don't think they plan on contributing anything, or but it's still nice to see that the code base is apparently usable in usable for a developer to like work with, which is, I mean, the main goal of 3.0, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't worked much in it. I do like a little bit of a, like a few changes here and there when I have like some time, but yeah. I mean, I think there's like not that much, like talking with this community member, I like kind of saw like, okay, there's not that much left to like really, like there's not that many like core things left to do, which is cool. There's still like a long way to go until we have like functional bindings, right? But in terms of parsing the inputs and like all that, it's actually pretty like close to being done, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really worked much in it, so yeah.
You heard it here first. 3.0 is almost done.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I think
It'll release tomorrow.
I think it's actually over 2 years now that we started working on 3.0, because I think, at least in my mind, we started designing and like thinking about 3.0 when we did the JetBrains thing 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been over 2 years now since we like
Man,
begun
2 years,
thinking about
really?
3.0. Yeah.
God. I feel
Time
like I
flies.
remembered. Yeah, I know. I remember doing that. No, I wish we could
Yeah,
do
yeah,
more stuff like that. To be fair, it's good to actually talk about what Silk does rather than just here's a GitHub repo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, like in the last like few months, I did like a lot of things where I like did more like talking and like didn't do that much coding, and yeah, I think that's like really fun. Maybe we get a chance to do something like that sometime again.
Yes, yeah. Well, maybe we should do coffee and code. Oh.
Yeah, like yeah. I mean, this is like I think this is always super fun. I love talking about like just stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. It is really cool. It feels like we do have a very active community, as well. Like certainly more than when I first started working on Silk. I mean, Silk had a lot of followers from OpenTK and previous iterations of the library, but it was never like, oh yeah, lots of people come and go and either use the library or try to contribute to it. I mean, it's been 2 years in a row now that we've popped up in those graphs that the .NET Foundation released, saying which projects have the most new contributors or which projects have the most PRs. So
yeah, which is awesome. I mean, I'm always amazed because in my mind, like Silk is like one of those like bottom of the stack libraries, which like no one ever thinks about.
It's
Yeah.
just soulless middleware. That's all it is.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean like for like if you look at the C# stack of like a Silk based application, basically, it like most likely is like all the way at the bottom of the stack. There's nothing really below Silk in terms of C#. So it's really awesome to like see that there's actually quite a few people that like care about this.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And speaking of caring about things, if you care to ask us a question, put it in the chat. I don't know why I'm trying to segue into everything. Speaking of segues,
Have you heard about our sponsor?
this video is brought to you by Tunnel Bear. Oh dear.
And you can use this sponsor to segue. Just keep it going forever.
Yeah, didn't for one of our April Fool's videos, it was literally just a whole video of segues.
Oh yeah, Tunnel Bear, and you can tunnel into this segue.
Yeah, yeah, no, we don't have sponsors, so you could maybe
Unfortunately.
sponsor us as well. Yeah, that would be great.
I mean, technically, JetBrains is kind of a sponsor. We get licenses, I think.
Oh,
That's fair. Yeah.
That's such a cop out though. Like, we give us that $8, please.
I mean, we did once. We did get some once, but yeah. I mean, better than nothing, you know.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
I mean,
We're doing our best work.
it's the same effect, really. I mean, we certainly myself and Kai don't have a lot of time to work on the library, whereas the
Yeah.
sponsors could change that. But
Yeah. I mean, we're so far off from that, though.
I just find it
I have a lot of time. I'm just lazy.
Yeah, well, I just find it ironic that the Stride projects for migrating to Sil.NET 3.0 has more financial support than Sil.NET 3.0 itself.
I think it was
Yeah,
like one
it's-
person donating though.
Well, yeah, but they've still got a pot
Yeah.
of money, whereas we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
Um,
confusing.
The thing is, yeah,
Yeah.
Silk isn't that interesting of a project. It's not like a really cool game engine that's a super impressive feat. It's just like, oh yeah, now you can call
Yeah.
a function from C#. So
Yeah.
From
Yeah,
the
on its
surface
own.
of the API consumers, it's a very basic seeming thing from the surface of the API consumers.
There's not really much thought put into the however many million lines of code that are in Silk right now. They just see, oh, a clean API to use. It's not really like even people who are using it directly, they don't really see the scope of the project from
Yeah.
the perspective of just consuming it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that, and it's also just that, like, it's similar to, like, if you think about, like, OpenSSL or something, like, no one references that directly, but still, like, I think they, like, had this, like, minor security issue once, and, like, basically every program ever was impacted. So it's, like, one of
Log4j,
those...
that was it.
Yeah, like, no one
Yeah,
ever...
another one.
Like,
No
no one
one-
ever cares about, like, base libraries, which is, I mean,
Yeah.
expected, right? But unfortunate still.
Wait,
But I mean,
like,
I'm still...
Uno?
Yeah, I think Uno is using our OpenGL bindings now.
Really?
I've not paid attention, fully.
Wow. Okay.
I think I read something about it in the Discord, but I haven't hung around there in a hot minute. I haven't hung around there since I last tried to get WASM working properly.
Yeah, I don't see a few OpenGLs listed in there. Wow, okay, I did not know that.
How did you even stumble across it right now?
It was in the dependents in NuGet.
Yeah, I'm just,
Oh,
just
in-
having a poke around to see what repos are actually using, because it's always cool to see things built on top of it, like the what was it? It was Kinsen Digital's project. I forget the name of it, but that was like
Yeah.
a full 2D framework on top of it. Like,
It looks pretty neat. I'm excited to see new like little 2D frameworks pop up.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
have
wonder if
wanted to
it's
get something
using
like
our WebGPU in the
Compute
wild.
Sharp working with Silk, but it's yeah, there's just
I
not
didn't
a lot
know
of,
that Stride actually.
Yeah, no, Stride uses us. Stride Stride's
didn't.
it's an active effort to port to all of our bindings and the Stride part to Silk.
I have to pay more attention.
No, Stride was a big. There are a few projects that I'm really keen to get on Silk, and it was certainly in the initial days of Silk that I used to actively push for that. Like Stride was one that I blocked in basically immediately, because well, certainly now that we're both in the .NET Foundation, it makes sense for all of the .NET Foundation projects to talk to each other.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think we also at some point pushed for. I think it was Evolonia. Is that correct? I think we pushed for
and
that.
their response kind of made sense, to be fair. Like, they don't actually want to provide or lock their users into a specific binding. But by that logic, they're trying not to expose any binding, so makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I guess I disagree, but yeah, I mean, sure.
Everything should use Silk.
I mean, it's just like,
Not biased at all, of course.
I mean, yeah, obviously we're biased to say that, but I mean, also, it's just so much harder to use it now than if they just like. There's not that many other like usable GL bindings around, right? So, you know.
Yeah, there's like TK. Yeah, that's about it. Like with usable GL bindings.
Yeah.
I think OpenGL.net still exists, but hasn't been updated in yonks.
Yeah, I think it's still like on
Yeah.
3.1 or something.
It's like SharpDX, which is also like, yes, it's good, but also no one updates it, so.
Well, yeah, but SharpDX is officially dead. That's the difference.
Yeah.
They've actually put an announcement saying, this is archived, don't use this.
Yeah, yeah.
Vortis has picked up most of the slack of SharpDX.
Yeah, until Silk.net.
Yeah, we recently, did we just recently like add a bunch of new DX APIs?
Yes.
We've actually made them usable now.
Yeah, 2017 also adds like I think we added direct composition and direct write. 2017. Was it composition and direct write? I don't remember.
I'm hoping
we
in
added a
3.0.
bunch of new direct experiments.
I'm hoping
No, I
in
definitely added
3.0
2.0.
to extend it even more.
Yeah,
But,
we added a few more DX bindings recently. I believe some of them aren't even covered by Vortis.
I think DX is like one of those which would massively benefit from like the class thing that we worked on, but yeah, that's
Like
really
what?
something that's impossible with Kubernetes. Yeah, one of the like main things for 3.0 is having like the class overloading, right? You remember?
well, given that there's no code, I don't particularly. The thing is, there's so many ideas for what 3.0 should be at the moment, and none
Yeah,
of them
for
are on
sure.
paper.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like, well, I mean, it'd be cool if we did this, but I mean, that's Silk in the first place, no? So,
Yeah,
I'm always happy to say, like, oh yeah, this will happen, but it's like it's an idea, because, like, yeah, it doesn't happen. I mean, I can always make it happen, right? Like, pay me, I'll make it happen, no problem.
yeah.
It's like, I'm not too mindful about saying things there, because, like, we can make it happen if we really want to.
Yeah, I am hoping that 3.0 is the last main version of Silk, or at least the next breaking release shouldn't be, after 3.0, shouldn't be an entire rewrite of the library.
Yeah, for sure. That would be good if we get it right now.
Well, yeah, because we've the features of the language and runtime that we're using seem pretty stable now. Because whereas if you look at the 2.0, we were making the first previews of that as .NET source generators were being themselves being worked on, and function pointers being worked on themselves. So we were very much bleeding edge, and it did hurt us a bit.
I ran for like several months on literally like a custom built Roslyn version with all the branches merged, because it was like, I need this now, give it to me. So yeah, I mean, it was like as bleeding edge as it gets. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and then after we actually started using source generators properly, we realised, oh, this was maybe a mistake.
Oh yeah, source generators are slow.
I mean, I still think that it wasn't necessarily like a mistake. I think it still like served the purpose well.
Hey, our,
I
bi-
think
our,
we
bi-
just
our build times are 2 hours. How could you possibly think that?
Yeah, even on
Well,
my 12900K and some of the target framework disabled for like a lot of the projects, just so it builds under Linux, it still takes like an hour to build on my machine, and I have an overclocked 12900K.
yeah, but
It's a
to be fair,
bit of
it's like,
insane.
I mean, the main problem is just that we can't use multi-threading, and then we just have like
Yeah.
like probably millions of API definitions, right?
Yeah,
And if you
I
have
think
multi-threading and you have to process like millions of entries. I mean, it's gonna take some time. So, like,
yeah, I think our generated code alone is like a good like 7 million lines, and then that generated code is then regenerated again by the source generators. It's probably creating like 50
yeah.
million lines of code at the end of the source generation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
It's hard to
if you
tell.
look at, like, if you look at like the output of it for like gl.gen.cs, it'll be like 10 megabytes easy. It's
Yeah, like I was working on SDL and it was like it was like 2.3 million lines of code output from SDL.gen.cs. It was like, ooh.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's kind of. Yeah, go for it.
yeah, I mean, I think Dryden in the YouTube chat has hit the nail on the head. Is that it's brought source generation down to the compiler layer, but has yielded exactly none of the benefits of it. It could have just taken the AST and sure, but then it's got to figure out, how, because no one will make a perfect AST in a source generator, so of course it's got to try and figure out all the context and whatnot. But that would still be better than just pure strings.
Output the source.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, we've got to convert it to a string and then parse it again to get all the context. Like, we are working
Also-
within the compiler. We could just not do that.
Yeah.
I'm a little foggy on the details, but I think at one point I literally worked inside of Roslyn and like we brought the compilation time down by like 50%, and it's still now taking 2 hours again. So like,
Yeah. It's
it used to
we
be worse.
it's gotten big enough that we actually just can't build on the GitHub repo on the GitHub actions. It just doesn't work. It can't be done. We run out of space. There's so much storage being taken by the object files and the final DLL files that our only option is to use the self-hosted runner.
Yeah, I saw that. Actually, isn't it? I thought about that earlier. I forgot. I don't know why we never thought about this. Why don't we build every library like individually? Like, isn't that just like free parallelism right there?
That would be like 80 different CI jobs running. I don't think Microsoft would be very happy with us running 80 CI jobs.
I mean, they haven't cared about the like huge bill they probably get from GitHub already. So
Is it one giant action? Yes. Our current build action is a single GitHub
Yeah.
action that builds the entire source tree.
I mean, it's like .NET build with like some extra magic around.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's just nuke compile.
Yeah, which is like .NET build, like more or less.
Yeah. I think we could split it off to where each different folder, like SpearV, OpenGL, WebGPU,
Yeah.
Microsoft, can be built in separate actions.
If we do like 5 or 6 different like actions, I think it should be able to just build, and
Yeah.
it still would take long, but like not as.
Yeah, it'd be parallelization. Although, ooh, that does not. Oh no, it would actually be decent to use it because we can have it automatically generate the cut down solution files with nuke SLN, which we already have.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be that bad to do. That would be something to look into.
Maybe there's a reason why we never did that, because I think we tried to optimize CI before and never figured it out.
There is
Yeah,
a lot of
like-
interdependency between the projects, and NukeSLN
Yeah.
gets every single project that is referenced by any project. It is certainly possible. Is just maintaining the CI. Like if we auto generated the CI workflow, then yeah, fine. I know at work we have a GitLab pipeline that spawns thousands of jobs. By just,
Oh my god.
by just recursively. Well, it uses some matrix crap, but yeah. But
Oh,
it,
I love the matrix
I
stuff
love
on GitHub. It's
I
awesome.
know it's so great. But yeah, it would be good to try and figure out what. That's weird that it just runs out of space though. We've never had that before.
I think it's the new native libraries we've been adding. Like, I think it's specifically a problem with the SDL library CIs because I'm adding like I'm adding 3 new supported architectures to SDL, to our SDL libraries, combined with the WGPU ones and the other ones I've been adding, and the ones I'm going to be adding. I think we're just starting to hit a limit of the storage capacity because cloning a fully recursive GitHub, like a fully recursive copy of the Silk.net repository is like 4 gigabytes, I think. I actually have a fresh clone of Silk.net. Wait. How do you view a folder size on Linux? Is like DH or something? DF?
Oh,
It's
ask me.
DU or D or DF. I don't remember
Yeah,
what it is.
DU, yeah.
One of those might also format your disk, so
DU. Okay, yeah, it is DU. So a full clone is 11 gigabytes
wait, really?
with all sub. Well, because you got the entirety of LLVM like twice. Because like I think Swift Shader directly has an LLVM submodule, and then Swift Shader Power VR examples. One of their examples also has an LLVM submodule. So we have like 2 copies of LLVM, the entire Git tree, and like the 80 other submodules with tons of Git history too. Angle is a big one. Dawn, we have Dawn as a submodule now too, which is massive. So like
That is
a full
ridiculous.
recursive. I think it would help a lot if we set up the CI to only clone a depth of 1. That would probably help a lot. If you upload artifacts that they're built and delete them, save space in the runner. I was suggested that by I don't remember who. I'm sorry if you're in the chat. Someone suggested that instead of oh wait, no, it was in the Silk.net or no, it was in the Sunny West Discord. Someone said, why don't you upload your native binaries that you compile as artifacts?
We should.
We probably should, although my response was it makes it harder to build from source the native library packages if they're artifacts rather than in the repository, but it really isn't that hard to just clone it.
So I just looked up. I might be wrong here because I'm not super sure whether this is the right table. But looking at the docs, I think you're supposed to have 500 megabytes of storage on GitHub free.
Yeah, I don't think we have 500.
On GitHub, on GitHub Team, you get 2 gigabytes. And then on GitHub
Yeah, I think we've hit that.
Cloud, you only get 50 gigabytes.
Oh no.
And,
It is.
And then
Do
I
you
also
have like enterprise?
I mean, I guess.
We're in
I
the .NET Foundation Enterprise, so the .NET Foundation pays for all
Yeah.
that.
So they probably have GitHub
Okay.
Enterprise Cloud, which gives you 50 gigabytes of storage. But then also,
Oh no.
using those 50 gigabytes of storage will cost you 50,000 minutes. Which is...
I think
mean-
when Silk is fully built, I think it actually does take up 50 gigabytes. Because if it's 11 gigabytes fully cloned without any built anything, I think it may actually take 50
So all the
gigabytes when built.
object files?
Yeah. Oh no.
Well, let me download the artifacts from the latest release and figure out how much we're bankrupting the .NET Foundation.
I mean, it's
Oh
probably
no.
a good amount, right? I mean, like 50 gigabytes is the absolute max that you can go to, and that's 50,000 minutes. And I mean,
And we're running out of space, and I ran the CI like 5 times trying to like see if maybe it's just random. What if I just rerun the CI a bunch of times? Maybe it'll get passed once.
do we have,
Oh no.
do we have a clue how many cores we're using?
I don't know. We're using Windows latest, I think. or,
Yeah,
like
so
Windows 2022.
I think it's a dual core machine because I remember when I tried to parallelize the compilation for some of the native binaries and Silk itself. To be fair, it actually starved the thread that was talking to GitHub Actions. So that's the main reason why we need the self-hosted runner.
Right. I think that's also a thing we do in the generate binding CI. I think we specified to build tools to only do generation on a single
Oh
thread.
yeah, because I
build
ran
tools
into
by
that. It
default
was
is
starving it.
multi-threaded.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably a bug with the CI, but
How long does it take? How long does it run take right now?
on the self-hosted runner, I think it's like 45 minutes.
And on like normal GitHub CI?
It fails after an hour and a half because it runs out of space.
But
That's bad.
If you look at my SDL2 libraries PR, you'll see it failing. You'll see one of them failed after 6 seconds, and yeah, the temporarily disabled self-hosted runner commit in my PR, it failed after 30 minutes, which is quicker than it usually did.
I'm assuming I'm using the wrong table because this really can't be. I mean, this is probably wrong. I hope that this is wrong. But if I understand the table right, which I hopefully don't, that would mean that running it once for 90 minutes and capping out the storage costs you like $80 every time.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, .NET Foundation.
there's no
I would
way.
assume that we're doing it. But yeah, I'm calculating it wrong for sure, but I mean, so
Oh no.
We'd have been told off by
I'm assuming it's wrong. They would have
Okay.
for sure.
Let's take a conservative estimate, and 30 minutes, that's going to be a third of $80. That's still a lot of money
No, it's
per
not good.
CI run.
No, because I probably understand this incorrectly because it doesn't make that much sense. But like, if I understand the tape correctly, it's 1.6 cents per minute, and then the storage just costs a flat 50,000 minutes.
If you run out.
Which, yeah, if you run out, at like 50 gigabytes.
Oh my god.
If you
Oh,
even,
no.
I'm saying it incorrectly. I would assume because there's no way it's this expensive. But yeah.
There's no way we're costing the foundation $50 per failed CI run.
I'm like sure that they would have contacted us, so there's no way. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way we're costing them $50 per failed CI run, and I ran like half a dozen of them days ago.
I mean, we do them on every PR and every commit. I'm like, there's no way it costs this much. Like, I'm pretty sure that if we spend like in a day, we spend like $200. I should some contact us and it's like, hey, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Stop this immediately. We don't have this kind of money. Maybe they have a reduced rate because.
I
don't
mean,
know.
I would assume, but still, they would have contacted us for sure. There's no way.
Yeah, like, hey, you're costing us like too much money. Oh, your CPU.
Yeah.
Oh, the stream.
I just figured, well, it was let's just see how long it takes.
Stop it! Cancel it. Your microphone is cutting out.
Oh, really? Okay, maybe that wasn't as simple.
It's dying.
Okay, there we go.
No.
Oh,
The stream is dying for the cause.
Look, I just wanted to see how long it took on my machine. I haven't done a full build in a while.
I need to
Oh,
see. I need to see the. I need the. I need to see the VOD of this because, like, you can see how it says attempting to cancel build, and in that second, you get back the resolution. It's beautiful.
Oh boy.
I can't. You still can't build Silk.net entirety under Linux. You have to patch Silk.net.math to remove the iOS workloads. You have to patch SDL windowing to remove
Wait,
the
what?
iOS workloads.
Sorry.
iOS workloads don't exist on Linux.
That
Neither do
is
the MAUI
stupid.
workloads or most of the Android workloads.
That's just annoying.
Yeah, blame Microsoft. They don't publish the workloads for Linux, so you can't build. It just dies at the start.
Yeah, that's basically the net.
I have a patch set. I just have a patch file sitting somewhere on my home folder, which just
Good shit, that would be
patches
just-
Silk to build on a Linux.
I actually noticed I haven't built Silk.net like 2x in like what, like 2 months, 5 months.
There's
Really?
very little reason to build the whole solution in your.
I mean, it's on Linux for like half a year probably, and I didn't know that it didn't build, so I guess I have not tried to build it.
When was the last time you did anything for 2.x? I think you've been 3.0 for a while. By this
I
point.
think a lot. Really long time. I mean, I checked.
It's still
Yeah.
cutting out. I think it's still running in the background.
I don't. Well, I hope not. I don't know. Let me check. Oh Jesus, what's
.NET
going on?
compiler loves to sit in the background and
Yeah,
do absolutely
it
nothing.
really does. It really does. So the last commit was from the 12th February, so that's not that long ago. Which was me like fixing the merge queue thing. Which like I did that in like on GitHub. And then
Yeah.
the thing before that was in June, when we stopped doing monthly updates. And I also did that in the editor, on like on the web.
When was the last time
And
you
then-
had Rider actually open on 2.0?
On 2.x, probably over a year ago, January 17th was the last commit.
I tried it recently and it made Rider suck up like 24 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It
Visual Studio, I tried it on my dev kit. I tried to do Visual Studio on the full solution on my dev kit. Visual Studio sucked up like 18 gigs of RAM, then crashed.
Yeah, it's bad.
Like, you'd think that a machine with 32 gigs of RAM and like, a decently powerful ARM CPU should be able to handle at least opening the solution, but no, Visual Studio just flat out crashes.
Visual Studio loves to do this thing where it just crashes and then like shows you this like stupid pop-up that just tells you, "Oh, we're collecting things. Please wait." And I'm like, I've been waiting for 45 minutes. Please go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always is. I think I have not once used Visual Studio to like work on stuff because it just doesn't have it. Like it never works.
Yeah,
It
gotta love Visual
just-
Studio.
Doesn't. Okay, once you let Rider fully settle, it'll steady around 24 gigs of usage on RAM, and then it will actually be semi-okay,
But it's pretty
and
usable.
you will get completions.
I mean, it's pretty usable though. I think it's pretty usable.
It's usable, but it sucks up like it pins like 8 of my cores when I like try to go for IntelliSense.
You should also disable swap while you do it because it'll just not work.
Oh, I don't have any swap. I have 64 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah,
That's- I think
I've
that's-
recently upgraded from 16. I've got 80 gigs now, and I think peak usage when compiling all of Silk.net was 37 gigs, I think.
You have 80 gigs?
Yeah, well, I just got 264 sticks, so I've got my two 8 gigs which I had before, and now I've got my two 32s.
There's no
Okay,
way.
I see.
to-
That's
there's
like,
no good configuration for performance.
yeah, that's not optimal. Are the speeds the same at least?
Yeah, the speeds are the same. Yeah, I know it's not an optimal
Okay.
configuration, but it's just like I couldn't afford to get four 32 sticks.
I can't you do like dual, like just 264? Shouldn't that be way faster?
I have 4 16 gig sticks on my computer.
Yeah, I have two 16.6 on my computer, and it's like I'm always sitting at 20 gigabytes right now. So I couldn't build Silk right now because I don't have enough
20
memory
gigs
left
is the
over.
new 0.
I'm using 11 gigs right now. 3.1 gigabytes of that is Visual Studio Code. 2.5 of that is Firefox, and a gigabyte is from Discord.
I can't really check because I don't know how to check. So
Oh no, 800 megabytes is used by calendar reminders.
nice.
Okay, I don't know what that. I don't have any calendar reminders.
Oh,
I
you
don't know
do-
why that's sucking up 800 megabytes of my RAM. I don't know what KDE is on. I think I have.
How do you even check? How do you check memory usage by process?
You just use. I just open up System Monitor,
Wait, what?
and it just shows me a
For me, it
list
just
of
shows
applications.
all the individual like web content, isolated web content things from Firefox, which is not helpful.
Mm.
Yeah,
It shows me on a per application basis on the overview.
I see. Yeah, I don't know.
What is calendar reminders? Jivy, is calendar reminders taking up a bunch of RAM on your system too? If you're still in chat.
Oh, no answer.
Are you sure you're not looking at shared memory? I'm just looking at memory the memory tab on the applications overview. I just sort by memory. It doesn't specify shared or exclusive memory.
Because doesn't the shared memory include like paged stuff?
Probably. However, okay. So the 200 megabytes is my SQLD. Thanks, calendar reminders. So no, it's not shared memory. It's literally just it has a full copy of MySQL running in the background.
Right.
Why they didn't use like anything else like SQLite for like a reminder system? I don't see anything calendar. Okay, it's probably just something I installed. I think I have the full K suite, but yeah, it literally just has MySQL running as a sub process.
What's happening?
Yeah. Anyways,
Amazing.
I suppose we probably should talk about Silk.
The common code always goes off the rails for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah. So I guess on the 3.0 front, I mean, I'm still trying to play around with my generator experiments. I mean, actually trying to focus on it is difficult, but I suppose my aim there, like, I'm not trying to overtake Silk development or anything. I'm literally just trying to experiment with. Okay, well, what if we made a 3.0 generator that is still usable, but try to do it without all of the pluggable flexibility stuff that 3.0 really needs, but at the same time it doesn't lose that much if we don't have it. Especially if we're not going to have a source generator. If we're going to have a source generator, then yeah, we kind of need it. But yeah, it's just really really it's just for me to get my ideas of what 3.0 should be out of my head and onto paper.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
But yeah, I haven't got anywhere with that yet. I suppose the main thing with the ClangSharp compatibility as well. Again, repeating the vein of .NET Foundation projects, talking and working with each other. I really want to be able to feed all of the TerraFX properties through whatever 3.0 generator we end up making, and just apply our morphs, our modifications to it to make them silky. Because that way, this is something that Tanner and I have talked about a bunch. Is that, well, Silk.net and TerraFX have very different goals, but right now the APIs that each project exposes are themselves different, and it would be nice if it were clear cut which library you should probably use, with no compromise going between the two. So and TerraFX is very proven on the Windows front. So well, yeah, if we can throw all of their Windows generator properties through our generator and thereby feed it down to ClangSharp, and then just apply our modifications like we would as usual, it means that there's no real downside to using Silk or using TerraFX. It's just whichever binding style you prefer.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this is. I think TerraFX is great and all, but I think I'd really like to get to a point where Silk was like a strict superset of TerraFX, because I think, I just think that the raw styles bindings is good for some cases, but I think there's so many opportunities to just have easy safe variants that cost nothing, that I'm not a fan of saying, oh, we only do raw bindings. That's it. I mean, I get it from a point of scoping and stuff like that, but yeah, if we can get to a point where the quality is the exact same for the raw bindings, and then you just get extra stuff on top, I really love that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's what I want to get to as well. To be fair, because obviously Silk 3.0 should be very usable. If you want to avoid a pointer, well, okay, it might be a struggle, but we can probably make that work. But it should be a case of, well, yeah, it still feels C#y, and you can still use the raw. You can still use pointers and everything if you want, but fundamentally you have no cost or no added cost going between them. I just want to make it so that code you write using Silk.net or use it that works with these native libraries any native library, given that we want to make SilkTouch user usable, it just feels at home with the rest of your C# code. It's you shouldn't. It shouldn't look horrible and like you've just copied and pasted a bunch of C code into your C# file. But at the same time, some people want that. Some people want the ability to just have a C implementation and be able to pop it into C# and it mostly just work with minor tweaks.
Yeah, one thing I've been looking into recently about making some of the bindings a bit more user-friendly is trying to extend our computer overloading system to WebGPU, because WebGPU, the native headers are they follow a strict set of naming guidelines for everything that is an instance method is prefixed by the word instance. So like instance request adapter. Everything that is a device method is prefixed by the word device. So
I
device,
think Kai's been
device
talking about this for
create
ages.
Yeah, so what I was thinking of doing is having I was thinking of having extra methods generated by build tools, or maybe SilkTouch can do it. That would instead of returning a raw pointer, it either returns that raw pointer, or here, let me just play the first path. It returns a pointer, and then you can dereference that pointer and call a extension method on the original object. I think if you could still, I'm not too good with this part of .NET's craziness, but if you could still get the original pointer back, if you dereference a pointer and call a method on the dereferenced object, if you could still get the original pointer back, then it should be possible to just like have the user specify a global static web GPU somewhere. And then you can then do, I'll put it in the text chat for this channel. It'll be something like device create buffer. If I could still get back the original pointer for device inside the create buffer function, then it would be possible to then redirect that to just WGPU device create buffer and then pass in the device. So ideally, having a way to have those two things be the same thing would be really good. It would improve usability a lot. But if that's not possible, then I can have something.
Yeah, this is pretty much exactly a feature that I've been talking about. Slightly different, like I would match it slightly differently because Vulkan does the same thing, right? Like it's the exact same thing where like most Vulkan things are like very like object oriented, where you have like a main object that like creates like more, and then like you have functions that operate on those, etc. Yeah. I don't think you can do it using like the arrow syntax, but the way I like think we should implement it eventually is by having a sort of class that like has this, that's basically a safe handle. That's the way I like to think about it, that has the actual handle inside. So for Vulkan, these are just ulongs that don't have a specific value. But I guess for WebGPU, it would just be a pointer, I guess. It doesn't really matter what the inner type is. And then you can just like make a class or make like a extension methods on top of like that safe handle, and that those do exactly this. And yeah, I guess with WebGPU we can yeah, exactly, that's basically what it would look like. But like then it can also do I'm not sure, do you have to stream on the chat right now?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So what you can then also do is you can say 1 second. Basically this, what you said here, and then what you can then do is make another one, like for example instances create devices, if I'm not mistaken. So you can then do like a device wrapper which has an attached instance, like so typing is hard right now. So basically like this, and then you can do this like for all the like things. This is important for Vulkan. I don't know if the same thing applies to WebGPU. And then you can do this all the way down, which makes the binding super safe and like work amazingly. I had like a small-ish prototype of this. Like it's amazing to use because you can make them implement the dispose to like free them. Like you can do all the like C-sharpiness that you would expect from like an object-oriented API, and it's amazing. And you don't have like to provide the same handles everywhere. It's great to use, but I pretty much found this to be like more or less impossible to generate right now, because there's no. I mean, it's basically you would require like a huge amount of code of build tools in build tools, and I mean, if you manage to do this, I would be amazed. But yeah, I found it to be very difficult. So
if anyone's going to
the
do
reason
it,
why I
it'll
was
be
thinking
Bailey.
of the reason I was thinking about pointer dereferencing is that our direct 3D bindings used to work this way. The pre 2.17 direct 3D bindings, you would dereference a pointer and call a method on that. I have no idea how that works. I am not very well versed in the Windows component object model. But if you can get the original pointer in the example I sent in the channel, if you can get the original pointer of _D39 inside of get adapter identifier, then it's totally possible to do so. Although I'm not sure if that's doable.
I mean, you can do this. I think the way it works is you just have to make a function pointer, and then this is like fairly easy. I'm not super sure why we would want this to use like the arrow syntax. I feel like just having the more normal, like making normal methods would be better.
The reason you can't
So I'm
is
not
because
sure why we
WGPU
would like want the arrow syntax, but yeah, we can also do that.
Yeah, the reason why is because WGPU returns pointers to objects like a star buffer, or I guess it would be a buffer star or an instance star, and I don't think you can add extension methods for a pointer to an object. I think you can only add extension methods to the object itself. I'm not sure on that, but I believe that's how it works. I don't think you can add an extension method. Like you can't do this instance star in like
I mean,
parameter.
maybe you can't. I'm not sure. But I'm fairly certain you can just, like, what's the reason behind not just making a wrapper? Because you need the original WebGPU API anyways, right? Like, you need access to the original WebGPU object anyways to, like, make the inner call. So you sort of have to make, like, a wrapper anyways, right?
Yes, my thoughts for that were that the user is, in most cases, I say most, the user is discouraged from creating multiple API objects. Because in WebGPU and Vulkan, I think so too, you have instances, adapters, and devices, and generally you'll have one instance, sometimes multiple adapters, and sometimes multiple devices. It's very rare that you'll have multiple instances, let alone multiple copies of the native library. Like, you're never going to be calling into both John and WGPU at the same time. So my thoughts were to just, at setup time, when you create the WebGPU object, there will be an option to basically store that object in global state somewhere. Like, for example, in the WebGPU class, there could be a static WebGPU instance that we can call, probably not instance, that's confusing. But if we store a static copy of it, then we wouldn't need to store another copy. So we wouldn't need the wrapper class, and we wouldn't have to create like a separate method, or you wouldn't have to do, for example, instance wrapper equals, like instance wrapper instance equals new instance wrapper vk.create instance. You wouldn't have to do something like that. It would just, you would just directly dereference the pointers you get from the normal API things, and you'd be able to call the methods, presuming that you have set that global static state yourself.
Just real quick, Kai, while there's some silence, there's a question for you in the chat. Well, at least a question that's best suited for you as the maths guy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to read.
Apparently you're getting an answer by Robot Kai.
Yeah. Did you try to do this? But didn't get it. I am not good at math. Basically, I did research into this really. Sorry.
Yeah, fair. I just appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, I don't think any of us here are like experts in math, especially quaternions. No one understands quaternions. People say they do, but they probably don't. Oh, there goes Kai. I think Kai died.
Right. Okay. Well, sure, that might as well happen.
The internet sounded like it was dying, so
How to deal with
Probably
the different for multiplication and converting. I think we do have some helper APIs in .NET Maths
yeah.
for converting, but
But yeah, if we are missing the APIs, feel free to create a proposal, and we can take a look. Yeah, but if there's anything missing with our quaternion like APIs and such, feel free to open a proposal. We are still open to them for 2.x. And most of the math stuff that isn't 2.x is probably going to be reevaluated and probably pushed into 3.02. But yeah, we should have most of the methods for quaternion. Yes, I think numerics also has one. Alright, Kitara.
Wait, can you hear me again now?
I don't know how
Does
to-
this work?
yes, I can.
At least sort of. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
I would love
this
to make
just
the
didn't work
cleaner
anymore.
WebGPU and Vulkan stuff a thing. That would be really nice for just general usage, because having to pass around stuff. Is he gonna keep dying? Oh. But yeah, having to pass around the WGPU object everywhere and also pass around stuff like that, it's a bit of a pain.
Yeah,
It would be much easier.
The thing is, it would be great. However, I don't want to lock people into using that, because I know that's actually one thing that Thomas really hates. Is those wrappers that are just a wrapper over the API object and the handle, and basically you just replace a GL something do this with a something dot do this. Thomas would argue that it had no value.
The good thing about the one, like, if it does work this way, if you can in fact get to the original pointer when you dereference and call a method on it, if it does work that way, then it would be completely optional. You could just do wgpu dot device create buffer, or you could do device dereference create buffer, and they would both work the exact same way if you didn't want to use the, because it wouldn't be a wrapper object. It would just be the exact same pointer, but when you dereference the pointer, you get back your you get an object with a bunch of methods on it, because they're all just all the WebGPU objects are just opaque types, pointers to opaque types. So if you can still get the original pointer back out, this would be a completely optional way of doing this. And if you can pass a reference to a static object, and then we store that reference to your static object, we wouldn't even need to have like a static WebGPU. We would just store a reference to another to the user's static WebGPU, because then they could handle their static objects however they need. I don't know how feasible that is. For API for WebGPUs, no. Where it's not.
So
I
hope you can
API
at least
wrappers
understand me.
They can both be really helpful, but also really limiting if you're forced to use them. But also, some API wrappers just aren't helpful, and they can be like, sometimes you'll be encouraged to use them, but they limit how you interact with the API. So it's an iffy thing, which is why ideally we wouldn't do API wrappers, and we would just have you work on the direct pointers themselves. I guess the only downside to that is that some people still like avoiding pointers, which is...
Yeah, so
how does
that's...
that interact with extensions? I think that would just be extension methods.
Yeah,
I think the extension package would just provide an extension method over it.
So this is what I'm thinking
So,
for 3.0. as well.
So I hope you can understand me. I sort of disagree with Thomas.
Any extensions would just I think it would be slightly on a special case basis, like how exactly it interacts with the functions, because we can't just assume for if there's a shared prefix on a bunch of types and the first parameter of those shared prefix functions is the same name as that prefix. We can't just assume that is. We should return that to an API wrapper. I think for it to not be annoying, it should be like manually. You have to say all functions that start with device and have a device star as the first parameter, those should be turned to a prefix object for the device parameter. Because there's not really a good way to do this safely without introducing a bunch of unnecessary reference overloading on like a bunch of random objects, or like unnecessarily produce, or if we do have to go the wrapper route, unnecessarily producing a bunch of wrapper objects for things that don't need it. So I think it would be like a manual thing where a developer would go through and manually put in each type that needs to have these special overloads. They would manually put that in the generator.json, and it would just be shoved into build tools.
Oh,
Always just classes and then yeah. I don't think for OpenGL would work. I feel like, unfortunately, OpenGL just would not be possible because nothing's strongly typed in OpenGL. It's all uints. But for something like Vulkan or WebGPU, I believe Metal too, although Metal is a bit of a different case because it's Objective-C.
Yeah, for Metal we're forced to make a wrapper like that anyway, so...
Yeah. But for something like Vulkan or WebGPU, it would be totally feasible to have extension methods, because every single object type is strongly typed in both C and C# already. So being able to just add extension methods or overloads, that would work great. That might be something I'll look into after I get all the native libraries all good up.
Yeah, I'm curious, Bailey, how do you feel about the new strongly typed handles in OpenGL?
Like the ones that are in 2.x?
Yes, yeah.
I think they're a little clunky to use. Mostly because functions don't return them directly. You have to wrap it in the new. That's my main problem. If it did return the object directly, it's a double-edged sword. It forces you to use it, so you can't use raw uints, and then it's basically just object-oriented OpenGL at that point. Which, yeah, I personally, whenever I'm working with OpenGL and Silk, I always use uints directly. But yeah, I can understand the need for the strongly type handles, because yeah, my solution is just I don't use OpenGL anymore. Everything I do is WebGPU or Direct3D 11 through DXVK native. Yeah, that my solution is just I don't mess with OpenGL anymore.
Can I just quickly circle back to...
OpenGL is just too like weird of an API to be able to do that kind of thing with it. I'm sure someone's come up with some genius way to have it all be context surface dependent and clean wrapper objects that coerce back to uints and such, but it's a lot of work for what is essentially a feature that a fair amount of people are going to opt out of, because not everyone likes the wrapper objects. Some people just want to work directly with the uints and do not care, which is fair. That's how I work with it. Yeah, for something like OpenGL, it's a double-edged sword, but I feel like it could work for other bindings. Because, arguably, right now, Direct3D 11, or like the general Direct3D family of bindings, is the best one, the ones that translate the best in C#, because of the computer, because you're able to just directly call methods on it. I think those bindings translate the best into C#, just like from a ease perspective. But I feel like if we do this like overloading thing with dereferencing, or if we have to, we do a wrapper object. I feel like that would be. Yeah, I knew you were pulling that up. That would be good. It is something I want to see. I want to make WebGPU as nice of an experience to use from C# as possible, because even from using it just in C, it is not the best experience. Working with the multiple different headers that argue with functions, they're not even being a single dispose mechanism universal. It's quite a mess, and I've been able to wrap around some of that mess with the extensions that we provide, but my goal is to make it just a good experience and better than everything else. Because from what I've seen, at least, the Evergen WebGPU bindings are, no offense, but they're bad. It's just wrapper structs over int putter, and their bindings they're separate bindings depending on whether you're targeting Dawn or the browser. It's not clean. I don't like their bindings. I'm sure they work fine for their uses, but I feel like for the average like new person coming to like C# and graphics programming, I feel like nice, strongly typed bindings would be is a lot better for them.
Yeah, has anyone actually successfully used WebGPU headers like anywhere? Like, yeah, I know that with the WGPU and Dawn have partial implementations of WebGPU headers, and I know that mscripting is supposed to. But has anyone actually successfully used them and just them?
Just the headers? It is impossible to create a full application using only the base standard header.
Right, okay.
There is no way to dispose most GPU objects. You can get most of the way there, but you will leak memory constantly, and there is no way to fix that without using extension methods, which don't really exist in C. But we made that work.
So for mscripting, I'm guessing we just need to make our own wrapper, because I know there is a wrapper, but it's basically tried to stay as close to the JavaScript stuff as possible. And I'm guessing we need to somehow bind to the JavaScript runtime if we wanted to do that.
Mscripton provide, just like with SDL and GLFW and a few other things, we're able to p-invoke into a WebGPU header that is supposedly the same as the main ones. However, it's based on Dawn and it's 10 months old and no one's touched it. But theoretically, if we were to try, we could have our WebGPU bindings work on Mscripton, just out of the box. All the existing WebGPU code could just work. But in practicality, that's not going to work because the header is Dawn based and it's old, so the function signatures haven't been changed. Like not even that long ago, they changed a bunch of function signatures and the types of some enums, added some values, so it's just not really doable right now. Maybe I'll try to fix that myself. I'll try to update their header and like get that up to snuff, but as it currently stands, mscripton support is still a complete mixed bag, especially with the runtime problems. Yeah, if once the runtime problems are hopefully eventually fixed, it isn't too much of a stretch to get our existing bindings working with mscripton.
Yeah, okay. Kai, you're back. Are you able to circle back to your thing you wanted to circle back to?
Yes, first could we try just moving one voice channel?
I don't even know if they can hear us, because if they're getting RTC disconnected, then
I heard him.
they can hear us. Oh wait, oh no, am I being trolled by my Discord client again?
Remove one voice channel up.
What does that mean?
Uh-huh.
We can switch to the maintainers chat, and then if anyone joins, we can just drag them in.
Do you mean like actual like voice region?
No, they mean switch voice channels to maintainers. See if that helps.
I don't think it will.
Let's see. I can hear you.
Hope this works.
Hello, Kai.
I don't know
All
what.
right. We're back in business. Probably.
Obviously, so I just restarted everything for some reason. Discord just doesn't like me today. Just tell me if I start lagging, okay? Because I can hear you perfectly the whole time. It's just me that, like, I don't know. Yeah. So I just wanted to like circle back to the like rapper thing, because I know we had like a discussion with Thomas about this before. That like, oh, you know, GL often has this thing where it's just like a uint, and we all just pretend this makes it safer, but it really doesn't. But I think for apparently WebGPU, but especially for Vulkan, I think there's a lot of value in making these wrappers, and I think we can make them very like nice to use without really much cost. But I think it's better to essentially make a mirror of all the types than like doing like static state, because I think the cost of just having like a single root function that's like create instance managed or something that then returns the instance wrapper, and then all the functions on that will like return more wrappers, is like fairly low. Because like you can always construct the wrappers yourself. They're like very easy to like make. And yeah, that way you just like have a mirror of all the things, and it's like, you know, it just like it's a bit of a cost and like a bit of a trade-off versus like the static state thing, but I think it could work really nicely. And I think they, for like Vulkan, which is inherently very oriented, I think we would get a lot of value out of it. I just think that matching these functions, like finding the right functions to add, is very difficult.
Yeah, that's why I want it to be like a manual thing we put in generator.json for like every like, and have like manual inclusions and exclusions. Like every method that starts with a device star also is put into that. But
so I'm not sure. Do you mean that the function names start with instance or device, or do you mean the first parameter is device or instance?
both. I think ideally, if by default, when you say okay, device, do this for device, it should check both and ensure both start. Like it has the function has to start with device in the name and as the first parameter. But then we can have manual exclusions and inclusions.
Oh, the way I wanted this to work for Vulkan, and the way that like I made a small proof of concept of this that like kind of worked. The way that worked was like it's basically like a recursive thing where, for example, in Vulkan, all of the methods have like the first parameter is just an instance, and then it would like find all of those, make them into like the instance wrapper, like, you know, make the function whatever, and then it would like go again and like look at all like the new functions and the remaining like old functions, and like look which one of these start with device now, storing like the this argument, and that way we can get things that where there's like an object created from another object. So for example, in Vulkan, it's like super common to have like a device function which like takes the instance, the first parameter, and then the device, the second parameter, and then like, the actual parameters come like after those two. So we could like also match that, and it's like that way it's really like getting useful, not just like in basic uint wrapper basically. But it's very difficult to, I think, make a robust system there. I'd be very amazed if you do it, but I think it's very difficult.
For WebGPU, it's a lot easier because they don't have you don't pass instance for every method. The instance is tied inherently to the device object itself. It's internal state that the implementation takes care of. So instead of passing in instance then device, you just pass in device, and then the implementation will internally take care of finding the instance and doing everything.
I see. Can you explain what the advantages of making like a... Oh, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
It can. I think they're dead.
You think they're dead? Wow.
Yeah, happens to the best of us. I'm gonna presume they asked, what do you think the advantage... Oh, wait, no, wait, are they back?
Oh,
Oh, hello?
hello?
Can you hear us?
Oh, so you couldn't hear me. Wait, what is happening?
No, we could hear you. We could hear you for a bit.
That is, I hate Discord so much.
Okay, you were saying
But-
what are the advantages of
Yeah,
X, and
so
then you got off.
what's the advantage of having the static state versus just keeping it as part of like a new type? Because I think the new type is just better.
The advantage is
Simplicity. You don't have to create a wrapper object. You don't have to have extra methods to return these wrapper objects, or you don't have to have the user construct these wrapper objects themselves. It just quote unquote works. You can directly dereference it and call a method on it. You don't have to worry about, oh, is this object keeping a copy of my web GPU? You don't have to worry about that. It just kind of functions.
I see. Yeah, I
A
mean,
static state would mean that you, instead of having to worry about some random object you've left in a list you forgot to clear, holding your web GPU object hostage from the garbage collector. I think having it as a single static object that the user has to explicitly set themselves before using these methods would mean that the user is fully aware that there is a static reference to this object, and it will not get cleared by the garbage collector until they clear the static reference. I think that
I mean,
is better
kind of
than...
get that.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is just like there's a small gain here that it feels more magical. But I feel there's several drawbacks. So the first one is like, oh no, dude. Yeah.
I can hear you still.
All
Hello,
the
hello.
way you
I suppose dependent handle exists, so we can tell the GC what depends on what.
it doesn't
Heard
work
of that.
again.
Dependent handle struct.
Why?
Dependent garbage collection handle. The handle will keep a dependent object. The dependent object is reliance on the target object as well. Okay.
No, okay, it don't work. But... Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I actually, yeah, this makes me think. Instead of storing a reference to the web GPU object, we could store a weak reference to a web GPU, like a static weak reference, which would mean that once the user is done with the object, it's gone. But that also has its risks.
So it's. But yeah, I think just the biggest advantage is
Compatibility with existing code, less overloads, and not having the user have to construct objects themselves. Because you either have like double the overloads for creating these wrapped objects, or you have the user have to construct these wrapped objects, which is why that the strong type handles in OpenGL are not too helpful, is because the user has to explicitly construct them. That's why I want to do just a bit of static state, and then you just dereference and overload that. That's my reason. By the way, Kai, if it's easier, you can type out your message in chat, and I'll read it out loud. Okay. So yeah, just explain why you think, like, what you think that the disadvantages would be of my method. Magical, and it might feel better.
Yeah, I think the way I feel about static and not having static functions was something that where Silk has gone against pretty much every other binding library out there. But we did so in the name of correctness. For example, OpenGL has no the function addresses are dependent on the context in which the GL object is created, so it made sense for it to be an instance. And with Vulkan as well, you have the VK get instance proc address and the VK get device proc address, which obviously for Vulkan we could have like the create instance function as static, because that is in theory constant. Like you can't VK get instance proc address of VK create instance, because in order, or rather you can, but you can't having an instance handle because you would have already created an instance at that point. So I think with Vulkan we could have one static function being create instance and the get proc address for get instance proc address, but that's literally it.
what I meant, I didn't mean like static functions. I meant here. I'm gonna write this out in code because that's a lot easier for me to articulate.
Yeah, fair. But if anyone has any static fields or static properties, then I will be mad. Static state is cursed.
But yeah, I don't know what I would call this, but it would be something. Return new default context, whatever.
Well, I think my
But
question
yeah,
is also
if
somewhat
the-
recovered.
No.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you better now. But yeah, what I was thinking of is that you would store a static copy of the web GPU object itself, and it is not set by Silk. It is only set by the user, and then these magical dereference methods. So it would be like public static class device overloads or whatever, and it would contain a public static void. Buffer star in this case, and it would be a create buffer this device star device, and the function would just call my GPU.
Oh man, I didn't realise that this was the Key Smash podcast. Any OpenTK fans say hello in the chat? Oh, back when the Key Smash podcast was a thing.
Yeah, it would basically be something like this. The overloads would just call the static instance, and if the static instance didn't exist, then it would throw an NRE, and I don't know, maybe we can have like some special exception for it.
But like, there's so little benefit, which is just like having an extra type. Like, you get this like extra like confusing error when you initialize it wrongly. Like the likelihood of someone calling this function and not realizing they have to like set the instance is so big. And I mean, like, I just don't really see it. I think that like having a proper like managed object gives us this and more. I mean, we can then like also handle like destroying the object again using dispose. We can like there's so much more we can do if we make like a proper managed object. And like having the static, I don't know. I feel like having a static field is like already pretty bad, and then like it doesn't really give us anything. So I feel like making it like a proper object is just better.
Well, a lot of it for me is just not having to deal with the proper object, because that has to come with some compromise. Either we double the amount of overloads for those methods, which overload explosion is already quite a big problem with Silk. Like, I've spent like an hour just trying to get a single method to be happy because there's like 50 overloads and I have no idea what it wants. Having a double set of overloads, probably not overloads, but like a different set of functions with a different name would just be confusing. But we can make the NRE a bit nicer by just checking at the start of the method if instance is null, then do something else. Like say throw exception. You cannot use the dereference overloads unless you set the static state, which would make it very clear what you have to do, and it would remove the need for that second set of methods that returns the wrapped object. The options are returning the wrapped object directly using a second set of methods, or having the user construct the wrapped object themselves. So we're either doubling the amount of functions for a lot of things, or we're having the user construct which stuff, which is the main thing that I was thinking of.
I don't know how bad this is in WebGPU, but I would. So for me, it's like in Vulkan you have this like sort of tree of objects anyways. It's like you get the root API, and then from the API you make an instance, and from the instance you maybe make like a couple physical devices. Then you use a physical device to make like a logical device, or maybe you use a couple to make like a group. And like from that you like create your shaders and whatever. So it's this sort of tree of like objects, right? And so what I would do is when you make one managed object, all the APIs that you call via this managed object will in turn automatically return more managed objects that like keep the references. So you would only have to create you only have to have like a single overload once for like creating the instance. That like says like, oh, give me like a managed instance this time. Or maybe the user has to construct it themselves like once, and then all the API usages like after that, after like the point where they create it themselves, or like they get it from like there's like one extra function. Everything after that is like automatically managed. It's like that would be the stuff. I don't know how well this applies to WebGPU, but for working this works like perfectly.
I see what you're talking about. That would also apply to WebGPU. But one thing about that is that it's not the two sets of like methods don't really interrupt too well. Like, say you have an existing WebGPU code base and you want to migrate from the old non-special overloads way, and you want to move to the new way. If you would have to, if you want to properly take advantage of the code readability improvement of the wrapper object, you'd have to restructure all of your code to properly take advantage of the tree.
You can
but
do it yourself, so it's like not really that big of a problem.
The main thing with constructing yourself is that's not really. If you have to construct it yourself, you lose the benefit of calling it directly on the method itself. That's the main thing.
Not really, because like it's only while you port. So like while you port your project to using the new functions, at whatever level you like start using the new API, there's like the border between using the old API and using the new API. Yeah, there you lose some of the readability because you have to construct the objects. But while you like port to like the new API and you like start using more of the new API, that like border moves up more and more until eventually that like border will be like right at the instance, where it's like you create like one object once and like that's it, right? Like, so I think like while porting it, this would not like, yeah, it would lose a little bit, but then like the more you use the new like sort of like managed style of API, the better it gets, I think.
Okay, I understand. I see.
But I mean, I get where you're coming from. I'm just really afraid of it's like having a static field.
Yeah, having it be static is like a big downside because then the user isn't in full, like it isn't in clear full control of the view of the object as it's now. I checked on SharpLab if you can store a static reference to an object instead, but like a static ref, not a reference, like a.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like if you store a static ref, like inside of a class, can you store a public static ref of a class? And you can't, unless it's a ref struct. I tried that, didn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have helped the problem because then once you just invalidate it on your side, it would also invalidate its reference. But you can't. There's not really a clean way of passing in. Like maybe you can with like some unsafe dot magic, but I don't know.
I mean, really, this like having this like discussion of like, do we want to like have this like static state that we like store to make things a little easier? I think that's like one of the like main asks of like anyone that has used Silk. But I think so far we've always been like, no, just like making that static field yourself if that fits your project isn't that difficult.
Yes.
But I think most users end up deciding anyways that it actually isn't a good idea and they do actually end up passing around like everything anyways. Because like in C#, like, it's not that big of a problem. I think most people like in OpenGL or like the Vulkan instance globally, but then like beyond that, I think most people pass things around quite a lot.
Yes. Most projects I've seen that use Silk, they all store the global GL object or the global VK object. They all store that globally static. So like access it from everywhere because it gets annoying sometimes passing around the GL object.
I have also seen quite a few people that, and I've done this way every time, is you have like your engine object or whatever. Like I think very few people make like their engine state static. I think most people make like an engine object or something. And then like I've always just stored everything in there and then passed it as appropriate. Which I think works pretty well.
Yeah, a lot of people
You're
make
not
a
the only
device
one.
object.
Sorry?
A lot of people make a graphics device object and store it in there.
Yeah.
They also
And they
make
pass around the graphical
they make
model.
like their own like buffer object, which then like stores like buffer handles, and like I think that way it worked out quite well. And like sort of what I was trying to do when I like prototype with this API for like 2.0 was like mirroring this like object-oriented approach to designing like the engine, but make it like sort of automatically work. At least a little bit already. But yeah, I think it's just very difficult to like automate.
Yeah, it's tough to do this in a clean, in a truly silky smooth way. Both ways has some drawback, but yeah, I think the tree approach would actually be better. Yes, I feel like instead of storing static state is ugly, but yeah, I feel like just having objects and just that transition point being more painful. I feel like I do agree now that having that transition point be more painful temporarily, but yeah,
I mean,
I think the wrapper objects would be a better choice for just cleanliness and not storing the static state.
if you like figure out how to do this, I will be absolutely amazed. I will be happy to help wherever I can, of course.
Yeah.
But like I looked into this like briefly, and I found it to be incredibly difficult.
We have I've looked around in build tools. We have the framework in place to make this relatively simply in WebGPU. I'm not versed in Vulkan.
It's the same. It's really the same.
I'm really not versed in Vulkan. It's there's a lot more stuff to take into account because it's a much bigger API too. WebGPU is like I think it's like 50 functions or something. It's a lot simpler. I don't have to worry about extension. I don't have to worry about very many extensions or anything like that. It's very simple. WebGPU is. So there's a lot less to worry about. So I think it'd be a good pilot for testing out
for sure.
this.
I think I think Vulkan is in terms of like complexity, it's pretty much the same. The only added thing would be that Vulkan has extensions, which I think WebGPU does not, and I'm not sure.
It does, but it handles it slightly differently. WebGPU itself does not have the same concept of extensions. There's unofficial extensions by both the implementers of WebGPU, but those aren't true extensions. But there's also the chaining mechanism, which is how you're supposed to do extensions in WebGPU, by chaining multiple objects together. Like, for example, the best example of how chaining works is the shader creation. You have a shader module descriptor, and that points to either a WGSL descriptor, or it can also point to a Sphere V descriptor.
I see.
And those are both just cast down. It's like S-type. Those structs have an S-type, and the main shader module descriptor points to one of those chained structs. That's how you're supposed to do extensions in WebGPU. But in context of native, that's not how most people do it. Most people literally just do more methods in a header.
I mean, that's like how all of Vulkan works, right? So. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like for extensions, I think this ties into I think the other like big feature that we've like pretty firmly planned for 3.0, which is like the interfaces. I think that's like way out of scope for 2.x, but yeah, that's like how I was like planning to handle extensions in like 3.0, which like then also with the like, managed wrappers thing, because like you could have like for every extension it would be like an interface that like says like whatever like device wrapper.
You say it's out of scope for 2.x, but I mean all of the build tools architecture is still there because we did it in 1.0. So
I mean
it wouldn't be that hard to bring back.
I mean, I'm not stopping anyone. I mean, if you figure out how to do all of this, I will be very happy. And like, I mean, yeah, I just think it's very difficult. I can hardly even look at the build tools code with getting confused. So I mean, but I think I'd still be amazed. So yeah, I would go for it.
Yeah, I think for WebGPU it'd be a relatively simple change. Relatively, I mean.
But for Vulkan, it's going to be a lot more work because I'm assuming there's also a lot more different types of things in Vulkan. And that tree is probably a lot more complex because I think in WebGPU, the tree only gets like 4 objects deep max. I think the deepest it goes is texture view, texture, device, adapter, instance. I think that's the deepest it goes in WebGPU. But I'm assuming in Vulkan it can go a lot deeper, so it's going to be a lot more to take into account. But yeah, I think as like a first pilot implementation, I'm gonna do it as just WebGPU just to get something down and something functional. And yeah, when I do try this, I am going to attempt to have just an extra function for instance, which returns a managed instance, and that's a wrapper object. I don't know how I feel about automatic disposal, but I will make it an iDisposal. I will have it extend over iDisposable so that you can use like using and such over all the objects. But I don't know how I feel about automatic disposal on the main thing. That's iffy, because if someone pulls out the raw object and just gets rid of the raw pointer and just silently gets rid of the wrapper object, it can be disposed at an time. We can have like computer type ref counting or whatever, and like release and whatever.
No,
but it's complicated. Yeah, I think the main scope of disposal is iDisposable.
I feel like usually I wouldn't say this, but I feel like for a soap it's pretty fair to say if it's more safe than it was before, I'm like fine with it. Because like, right now it's like you have dangling handles and everywhere anyways. Like the likelihood of you like leaking memory is like super high anyways. So like if you can make it like a little bit more safe, I'm happy.
I think having it as an iDisposable would just make it much better, like much safer.
I mean, yes, you could also shoot yourself in the foot with the disposal thing, but like you're already able to shoot yourself in the foot, so like, well, not too bad.
Yeah. WebGPU, how at least how WGPU, or no, but both Google and Mozilla do it. When you delete an object, it does not actually delete the object until everything's done. You cannot delete an object and cause a problem of it's still in use in the frame. If you draw with the texture and then delete the texture, it doesn't actually remove the texture from memory until after the frame is done rendering. So I think it's less of a problem with WebGPU, but I don't know how Vulkan works here. I don't think Vulkan has this kind of like internal ref counting.
Vulkan just like if you want to shoot yourself in the foot with Vulkan, go ahead.
Yeah. I guess Kitara can answer if they're still here. If you delete an object that is used in the current frame before the current frame is over, does it freak out or not?
Didn't ask that question, to be honest.
Because if it doesn't shoot you in the foot, and it does just keep it internally until it's done being used, I believe that's a failure. Okay, in that case, yeah. Other undefined. Yeah, in that case, we probably shouldn't have it automatically dispose. For WebGPU, it'd be fine, but not for Vulkan, and I'd rather keep the logic. Or I want to keep the behavior the same between WebGPU and Vulkan for this, because I'd rather it not be okay. It disposes automatically on WebGPU, but not on Vulkan. I'd rather not do that.
It'll be the same as a comp PTR. Like as soon as your comp PTR is disposed, that object does not exist in your eyes anymore. You should not use it.
Yeah, but in Vulkan, when you dispose it, it's also apparently a failure and undefined when you dispose it when it's still being used.
Well, yeah, but that's the user's problem.
Yeah, but the main thing, it'd be too easy to accidentally shoot yourself in the foot and have a really, really hard to debug problem, especially because the garbage collector isn't consistent. So having automatic disposal of GPU objects would be...
But the garbage collector doesn't call dispose.
No, but what we're talking about is having it call dispose. Because even Rider has a pattern for automatically generating this kind of thing, where it'll create like an is disposed, and the destructor will call dispose. that's what we're talking about with automatic disposal. Is that the GPU the wrapper object itself will in the destructor will call dispose if it's not already been called. Writer has this like remove unmanaged resources thing or whatever that it does when you like generate disposable patterns. But yeah, that's what I since it's undefined in Vulkan, I'm gonna avoid that and just have disposal is manually, but you have a nice.dispose function. I'll just run an image as there is invalid use of API if all commands are for them. Okay, yeah. Thank you. So in that case, it will not be automatic because it is too easy to accidentally shoot yourself in the foot by just calling a method and then letting the object die too soon. Because if the garbage collector calls at the wrong time, then you're screwed. OpenGPU chains like Vulkan, possibly the managed chain APIs out of Vulkan. You'd have to ask Perks here, Kai. I don't actually know how.
Yeah, I think Thargy and I discussed this, and we couldn't really make it generic, or rather, it is built on top of a structure type which only exists in Vulkan or OpenXR or WebGPU. So given that at the time it was only Vulkan and OpenXR that would ever have chaining, we just decided, yeah, if we want it, we'll copy and paste it. And we could, in theory, copy and paste it into WebGPU, although I don't think there are enough. In fact, no, we couldn't because we don't have any information as to what chains to what, like we do in the Vulkan spec.
You don't.
Or OpenXR spec, so
you don't.
We couldn't be able to generate that.
It's just a pointer cast. There's no information. Not like Dawn has a file which generates their header. It's a big old JSON blob. But that doesn't even provide information. It's literally just the structs, the names, and you even have to mangle the names yourself into the proper like C names. Sadly there just isn't enough information provided to us by the header to know what chains go where. There's not even a naming convention for it. I believe I've seen just instant naming. So it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So yeah, I don't think it'd be possible to move the struct chaining mechanism into a GPU. But chaining is, in the average application, you're going to use chaining once, and it's going to be when you create your shaders, and you're going to write that code once and never touch it again. So it's not really that big of a problem. But in Vulkan, I'm assuming chaining is a common thing. Yes. WebGPU is like that too. Everything starts with a pnext. However, we don't know at generation time which ones are valid. In the example of the shader module, we don't know at generation time that the only chains that are valid are WGCL descriptor or Spear V descriptor. All we know is that any void star object can go there. I think it's actually a WGPU chain struct or something. I don't think it's actually a void star. I think it's a chain struct star. But yeah, I don't think we have that information. Yeah. Either way, it's uncommon enough to where it's not a problem. It's an insignificant amount of code to do it properly. But yeah, I think just having the wrapper objects would be a big boost to readability. A base instructor.
Yeah. Alright, well, I think there's been a lot of great discussion after all the off-topicness at the start, but should probably wrap this up. We've been live for over 100 minutes now, so yeah, thank you both for coming. It's good as always. It is very nice to do these streams whenever we've got some progress to report on. It's good to catch up on what we're all thinking project wise, to keep each other all on the same page and what we're all tinkering with. So yeah, until the next one, which hopefully will not be months away.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I shall see you all at the next stream then. Thank you both for coming.
See everyone.
Yeah, thank
See
you
you.
all for watching. See ya.
Yeah.